stories beyond imagination.
Humanity is the final variable.
It began with a whisper in the static. For decades, Earth's satellites had scanned the skies, chasing radio bursts from dying stars and distant quasars. But this signal was different. It came not from the heavens, but from beneath the Earth's oceans, and impossible. Transmission pulsing from the Mariana Trench. Dr. Elena Vera, a linguist-turned-cryptographer, was the first to notice the anomaly. At first, she assumed it was corrupted sonar data, but when the same pulse repeated at exact intervals, her pulse quickened. It was structured. It was language. Governments moved quickly to suppress the discovery, but rumors leaked into the scientific. Underground, something alive, or something built, was speaking. From the darkest part of the Earth, Elena's team, a coalition of scientists under a shadowed military contract, was sent to investigate. None of them knew if they would return. The abyssal descent began aboard the Nereid, a state-of-the-art submersible reinforced, with alloys never tested under such crushing pressure. Its walls groaned as they descended into eternal blackness. Elena sat strapped into her seat, surrounded by monitors flashing with streams of code translating the repeating pulse. "It's recursive," she whispered. The deeper they went, the stronger the signal grew, as though the source awaited them. Her colleagues, Captain Marcus Hale, a decorated naval officer, and Dr. Ravi Iqbal, an engineer with a restless mind, watched the darkness swallow the last traces of sunlight. At 7 miles down, where few humans had ever set eyes, they found it. A geometric structure rising from the seafloor, its surface etched with symbols older than human civilization. It was no ruin. The thing pulsed with faint bioluminescence, as though alive, its carvings shifting like liquid light. The submersible's floodlights revealed an opening, a hexagonal aperture breathing in rhythm with the signal. Captain Hale swore under his breath, while Ravi muttered equations, trying to rationalize what no textbook had prepared him for. Elena only stared, entranced. "It's a message," she said softly. "Not to us, but for us." The aperture widened as if recognizing their presence, and the signal surged into their comm systems, filling the sub with an alien harmony that rattled their bones. Against protocol, Elena reached out and touched the interface pad. For the briefest moment, she felt something impossible. The brush of a mind not human, older than history, waiting for recognition. The Chamber of Echoes. The team stepped inside in pressurized suits, their boots sinking into dust that should not exist underwater. The chamber within was immense, far larger than the structure seemed from outside, its walls lined with crystalline columns that pulsed with memory. Holographic projections flickered across the air, stars collapsing, galaxies forming, ships of unimaginable scale drifting between suns. It was a library, an ark of knowledge buried beneath the waves. But what chilled Elena most was one projection that lingered too, long, a vision of Earth itself, glowing blue and fragile, marked with the same sigils that pulsed across the chamber. "It knows us," she whispered. Captain Hale frowned. "Or it's warning us." Then, as if on cue, one column cracked, spilling radiant light that coalesced into a humanoid silhouette watching them. The first contact. The figure stood silent, neither machine nor flesh, composed of shifting light and geometric patterns, its face reconfigured constantly as though trying to mimic human expression. Elena stepped forward, her translator implant working overtime, but the signal bypassed technology. It spoke directly into her mind. "You are late." She stumbled, gasping for breath as visions flooded her senses. Wars long past, civilizations extinguished, a cosmic cycle of creation and destruction. The being regarded them not with hostility, but with expectation. "What are you?" she managed to whisper. The reply was instant, chilling, and filled with weight. "We are the architects. You are the final variable." Captain Hale raised his weapon out of instinct, but Elena raised her hand. For the first time in human history, they stood not as explorers, not as invaders, but as subjects of something that had been waiting far longer than humanity had existed. The variable. The word echoed inside Elena's skull. Variable. It was not just a term, but a burden. She staggered back as the being extended an arm of refracted light, sweeping across the chamber's crystalline walls. The symbols shifted, reforming into new constellations, new equations, new histories rewritten before their eyes. Ravi was already recording everything, whispering frantically, "This is a computational archive, predictive modeling. It's simulating us." The being's gaze fell upon him, and for an instant his mind went blank, silenced by a force older than comprehension. The figure turned back to Elena. "You must choose. But choose what?" Elena's heart pounded. The chamber itself seemed alive, listening, waiting, as though her words could tip a balance that spanned galaxies. Captain Hale tightened his grip on his weapon. He did not like being reduced to someone else's variable. The test. The chamber shifted violently, its crystalline columns rearranging like gears in a vast machine. The team was thrown off balance as the ground beneath them opened, revealing platforms suspended over an abyss of searing light. Holograms materialized, endless scenarios of human survival, plagues, wars, environmental collapse. Each ended the same way: extinction. The being's voice thundered silently inside their skulls. "Prove endurance. Prove purpose." Elena realized with a sick twist that this was no archive. It was a crucible. They had not been summoned to witness history, but to survive its trial. Ravi's voice cracked as he pointed toward the displays. "It's running simulations. Thousands. Millions. Humanity always fails." The air grew heavy, pressing down on their lungs. This was the test. Humanity's worth would be decided here in a tomb beneath the sea. The fracture. Captain Hale's military instincts took control. "We didn't come here to play lab rats," he barked, aiming his rifle at the crystalline core. "We destroy this thing before it decides for us." His voice was steady, but his knuckles whitened against the weapon. Elena grabbed his arm. "No, don't you see? If it wanted us gone, we'd already be dead. This is evaluation, observation." The being turned toward them, and suddenly the chamber split into two timelines. In one, Hale fired, crystal shattered, light spilled, the chamber collapsed. In the other, his weapon lowered, and the being extended its hand again. Both futures played before their eyes, converging into an unbearable paradox. Elena gasped. The entity was not testing humanity's endurance alone. It was testing their choices. The paradox of trust. The holographic futures faded, leaving only silence thick as ocean pressure. Hale's jaw clenched as he slowly lowered his weapon. "I don't trust it," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "But I trust you less if you think this is salvation." Elena stepped forward, closer to the being. "If it wanted domination, it wouldn't need to ask us anything. It's giving us a choice." Her words rang hollow even in her own ears. Was it really choice, or the illusion of it? The figure leaned closer, its shifting face stabilizing into something almost human. "Trust defines survival," it said. Then, to their shock, the chamber opened, revealing a corridor leading deeper into the structure. The choice had been made, at least for now. Into the core. The corridor led them into a vast cavern bathed in eerie blue light. Machinery, unlike any human design, hummed all around, its scale dwarfing even the largest megastructures on Earth. At the center stood a colossal sphere of liquid light, orbiting fragments of shattered stars. Ravi gasped, recognizing patterns of quantum codes swirling across its surface. "It's a predictive engine," he whispered. A model of the future itself." The being hovered beside it, extending its luminous hand toward Elena once more. "This is your inheritance. The architects built it for those who endure. But inheritance requires sacrifice." The words froze the air in her lungs. In that instant, Elena understood. The architects were not saviors. They were executioners, ensuring only the worthy survived their cosmic judgment. And humanity's trial had only just begun. Fragments of truth. Elena stared at the predictive sphere. Its swirling surface replayed humanity's history, from the first spark of fire to the roar of rockets leaving Earth. But interwoven with these memories were fragments of futures, cities burning, oceans rising, skies choked with ash. And yet, in between destruction, faint glimmers of triumph shimmered. Colonies among the stars, cures for ancient plagues, unity carved from chaos. The architects had recorded not one destiny, but infinite threads of possibility. Elena realized the cruel truth. Humanity's fate was not preordained. It was a probability curve shifting with every decision. Final variable, the being whispered again. She clenched her fists. Perhaps it had waited for humanity not to prove perfection, but to prove resilience in spite of imperfection. "We're not finished," she said aloud. "Not yet." Captain's doubt. Captain Hale paced the chamber like a caged predator. "You really think this thing is here to give us hope? It's a weapon, a damn alien, Judge. And what happens if we fail its test? What happens when the model decides humanity isn't worth keeping?" His words rang against the crystalline walls, echoing his fear. Ravi spoke quietly. "Maybe the question isn't what happens if we fail, but what happens if we succeed? What if inheriting this power changes us into something worse?" Elena remained silent. Hale wasn't wrong, nor was Ravi. The being watched them with unreadable patience, its faceless mask a mirror to their conflict. Humanity's trial was not just survival. It was about what they would become if they survived. The message in the stone. The chamber vibrated as a column extended from the floor, unfurling like the petal of some alien flower. Inside was a crystalline tablet glowing faintly. Elena approached, brushing her hand across its surface. Instantly, visions seared her mind. An ancient war. Not of humans, but of beings older than galaxies. The architects had fought their creators, giants of thought and energy, who considered them mere tools. The architects survived, but at a cost. Endless wandering, hiding their archives in newborn worlds, waiting for others to rise. "We are the last who endured," the being said. "Now you are tested as we were." Elena stumbled back, trembling. The architects had not chosen Earth randomly. Humanity was stepping into the same crucible that had once forged them. The price of knowledge. Ravi pressed both hands against the predictive sphere, eyes wide as streams of data flooded his neural implant. He cried out, struggling to process the torrent of alien knowledge. Equations of faster-than-light travel, blueprints of energy sources that could end all hunger and poverty, medical cures beyond imagination. All of it rushed into him. But with each revelation came shadows, weapons capable of unraveling planets, viruses that could extinguish stars. His body convulsed, smoke rising from his implant as his nervous system strained to absorb it all. Elena and Hale dragged him away, but the damage was done. Ravi collapsed, eyes glowing faintly with alien fire. "It's too much," he whispered. "It's everything. Salvation and extinction in the same breath." The splintering. The team fractured under the weight of revelation. Hale argued for destruction. "We can't trust ourselves with this. Humanity barely handles nuclear weapons, and this is the end of free will," Elena countered with defiance. "If we destroy it, we prove ourselves unworthy. We show the architects we fear our own potential. Survival isn't just living, it's becoming more." Ravi, weak and trembling, whispered a third path. "Maybe it's not about keeping or destroying. Maybe it's about what we choose to take back." Silence fell. Each option was a future waiting to crystallize. And somewhere, deep in the predictive engine, the architect's models adjusted, waiting for humanity's decision. The chamber shifted again, revealing twin corridors, one glowing with radiant light, the other with suffocating shadow. The being's voice filled their minds. Path of creation, path of destruction. Both lead to consequence. One leads to survival. Hale shouldered his rifle, stepping toward the darker corridor. "This is the only way. We can't risk giving monsters the power to play gods." Elena blocked his path. "And what if walking into darkness makes us the monsters? Maybe survival isn't about fear. Maybe it's about daring to build." The air crackled with tension. The predictive engine hummed louder, feeding off their indecision. Humanity's fate teetered on the blade of choice. The betrayal. The breaking point came suddenly. Hale shoved Elena aside, storming toward the shadowed path. "I won't gamble billions of lives for some alien philosophy." His voice was raw, cracked with fury and fear. Ravi tried to rise, but his body failed him. Elena's heart wrenched. She couldn't let Hale decide for all of humanity. She sprinted after him, her suit straining against the crushing atmosphere. The being remained motionless, silent, watching. Hale reached the core of the shadowed corridor and leveled his weapon at the crystalline walls. "If humanity's going to be judged, we'll do it on our terms." His finger tightened on the trigger. The intervention. Elena leapt forward, grabbing Hale's arm just as he fired. The blast ricocheted, shards of crystal exploding into the air. The chamber howled with alien resonance, the predictive sphere convulsing like a wounded animal. The holograms of possible futures flickered violently, cities crumbling, oceans boiling, stars extinguished. The being's voice roared inside their skulls. "You fracture the test." Hale snarled, struggling against Elena's grip. For a moment, humanity's fate was balanced on a hair's edge between destruction and salvation. Ravi, coughing blood, forced himself to his knees, shouting hoarsely, "Stop! Both of you! Don't you see? The test was never about choosing a corridor, it was about choosing each other." The revelation. The predictive sphere stabilized, its surface shimmering with new images. Humans standing together, fragile yet unbroken, uniting against chaos not by force or fear, but by trust. The being's faceless mask shifted into something softer, almost reverent. "He sees," it whispered, gesturing toward Ravi. "The variable isn't technology. It isn't power," Ravi gasped, collapsing. "It's us. It's how we decide when everything's on the line. Not one person, not one path, but all of us." Elena's chest tightened with realization. The architects hadn't been looking for perfection. They had been looking for unity in imperfection. The sacrifice. Ravi's body convulsed one last time. His implant burned out, smoke curling from the edges as his life force ebbed. But before he fell silent, his final words echoed through the chamber. "Choose together." The predictive sphere pulsed, accepting his sacrifice, absorbing the imprint of his mind. Elena knelt beside him, tears floating weightless in her helmet. Hale lowered his rifle, his face hard but broken. For the first time, his voice softened. "He gave us the answer, damn him! He gave us the answer!" The being extended its luminous hand, brushing across Ravi's still body. The chamber quieted. Humanity had made its first true choice, together. The gift. The predictive sphere collapsed inward, condensing into a shard of radiant crystal that hovered before Elena. She reached out, trembling, and felt its weightless warmth in her palm. The being spoke, "This is inheritance. Not power without cost, but memory without chains. Carry it and choose wisely." The shard pulsed, embedding itself into her suit. For a heartbeat, she saw glimpses of possible futures. Earth cities glowing with harmony, humans walking alien worlds, and shadows too. Humanity devouring itself with the very gifts entrusted to it. The visions ended, leaving only silence. The being dissolved into light, scattering like dust into the abyss. The return. The chamber sealed behind them as they returned to the submersible. The weight of the shard burned against Elena's chest, a constant reminder of responsibility. Hale sat in silence, no longer the unyielding soldier, but a man haunted by choices he couldn't undo. Ravi's body was secured in a cryopod, his face peaceful despite his sacrifice. The ascent felt endless. Outside the windows, the abyss seemed darker, heavier, as though the ocean itself was holding its breath. When at last the surface broke and daylight poured in, Elena felt no relief. The true pressure was only beginning. How to carry a truth too vast for governments, too dangerous for greed, and too fragile for fear. The silence above. News of their return spread like wildfire. But the mission's details were buried under layers of secrecy. Governments demanded reports. Militaries demanded control. Corporations whispered of infinite profit. Elena resisted them all. The shard was more than technology, it was trust, and trust once broken could never be restored. Hale vanished into obscurity, a soldier unwilling to become a pawn. Elena remained, torn between silence and revelation. At night she dreamed of the architects, their endless wandering, their endless trials, and she wondered if humanity had already failed, not in the test, but in what would follow it, the whisper of the future. The shard pulsed faintly as Elena held it in her hands, alone in her laboratory. It hummed not with answers, but with questions, always questions. One night, as she drifted between waking and sleep, a voice whispered faintly, "Not the architects, but Ravi. Don't be afraid. Choice is never perfect, but it's always ours." Her heart clenched. Perhaps inheritance was not about power at all. Perhaps it was about carrying the burden of imperfection and still daring to choose again and again. Humanity's future was unwritten. The shard glowed brighter, awaiting the next decision. The human variable. Years later, when the shard finally awakened, Earth was already on the edge. Climate chaos, political collapse, war threatening to spill into the stars. Elena stood on the threshold, leaders clamoring for answers. Humanity divided yet desperate. She raised the shard, its light flooding the chamber of the United Nations, silencing all arguments. "This was never about the architects," she said, her voice steady. "It was about us. We are the variable. We always have been." The room fell silent, every soul holding its breath. The shard pulsed, projecting possible futures above them: hope, ruin, survival. Humanity's trial had not ended in the deep. It had only just begun.